This is Reverend Joseph Andrew Jensen. I'm going to tell you something right now. Within the next 2 months, God's going to start handing out lots and lots of money. All you got to do is get it. He's selling what they call GODScoin to everybody. In America, it'll be for $1 a piece. In Burundi, it'll be for 1 Burundian franc. In Egypt, it'll be for 1 Egyptian pound. And everywhere in the world, the lowest currency, the lowest amount of paper currency. If it's in North Korea, it'll be the won. If it's in South Korea, it'll be the won. If it's in China, it'll be the won. Actually, it'll be the luan. Okay, what I'm trying to say, if you listen to what I'm saying, every currency, every GODScoin is going to be sold to everybody for 1 unit of their money. So let's use, I'll be in Egypt, Cairo, Egypt. So let's use Egypt as an example, using the Egyptian pound. Of course, like you said, if you're living in anywhere else, if you're living in Colombia, it's going to be the Colombian peso. If you're living in Cuba, it's going to be the Cuban peso. If you're living in India, it's going to be the rupee. You know what I'm saying? No matter where you live, it's going to be the lowest unit of money that you have without making change. Okay? GODScoin's going to be sold. Now, when you're going to be sold on Amazon with my books. Now, if my books cost $40 in American, of course, just for instance, in America, if it was $40, you'll get 40 GODScoins for it. Okay? The same as one, like I said, 1 GODScoin per the lowest unit. Okay? If it's sold for 30. Now, what the cost, of course, in Egypt is going to be very much cheaper. It'll be like, it'll seem like it's cheaper, but it'll be like 200 or 300 Egyptian pounds. 200 or 300 Egyptian pounds is, basically less than $1, okay? Well, actually, it's about $3. Okay, so but what I'm trying to tell you is the book will be selling on Amazon, and it'll have its price in whatever your country's at. And when you order when you get your GODScoin or the books or in the GODScoin, you might as well get the book because you're getting the same amount of GODScoin for the book as if you hand it cash. But you're going to be able to order both the Egyptian pound or the money, right? I'm getting messed up here, but I'm not going to remake this video because of it. I'm just going to say it's not rocket science. Next week, next month, it will be. It'll be being sold. GODScoin will be being sold. Eventually, I'll say within a month, it will reach the whole world. It has to reach the whole world. If it doesn't reach the whole world, that means that's exactly why. What I'm going to tell you. God went to war with this world, with every religion in this world, over a year ago. He actually mentioned war with me to announce war. I am God's messenger. How long have I been God's messenger? I've been God's messenger since 2019, June the 9th, 2019, when I wrote God's message, and I tried to warn this world that God's coming. And that God wanted to build heaven on earth, and God's determined to do that. Now, not just the God in me now. We're talking about God the Creator. Now, there is another heaven. There's another heaven for sure. But he's also wanting to build heaven on earth. That started with the God in me. If that sounds confusing to you, let's define God. Another word that synopsis with God is life. God the Creator is life. Okay? God spent 9 months inside everybody, creating us. By the DNA, by the blueprints of the mother and father, God chose our traits as He wanted. He put us together in a 9-month time. Okay? While He's creating us, He was talking to us. Well, we didn't understand nothing. But when I say He was talking to us, I'm going to put that as a capital U-S. Okay, why would I put U-S? Us means He's creating us and God inside us. A mirror of ourselves. But that was the energy, okay? That God, after 9 months, left us behind with the God continuing in us. That was ignorant. He didn't know much. He knew only what the Father had taught him. Or her. Could have been a son or daughter of God living in us. Meaning that energy that was left behind him is either a son or daughter of us. You want to know what God looks like? Look in the mirror. Exactly in the mirror. But they didn't know anything before you. It wasn't like direct information. It was like you were learning. The difference of it is that God living in you has direct communication with God the Father. At least he should have direct communication with God the Father. But just like us, we can separate ourselves from God by not talking, by separating, just think about looking in a mirror. What do we do when we look at turn away from the mirror and walk the other way? We're separating ourselves from God. Okay? Now, what's going on behind that mirror? Everything. All life is happening. Way more things are happening behind the mirror than what you see in the mirror. Everything's happening behind the mirror. All the secrets of the universe are behind that mirror, going on at the same time. All the imagination, anything you can imagine is happening behind that mirror. Why? Because that mirror, you can't see any farther than your own face when you're looking directly at it. But your own face is God. That's God inside you. That God created, God the Father. Now I'm going to give, for the sake of this world, I'm going to give that name, God, a name called Allah. Why am I going to call it Allah? Well, because Islam it wasn't just Islam, it was Muhammad who was given the name by the angel Gabriel in the cave of Hira, was given the name Allah. Allah is a unique name. It wasn't the word for God. Allah was the word, was given the word Allah, the name Allah, and it's been spoken ever since. I'll say it was spoken ever since, but it wasn't really spoken ever since. Because the day that Muhammad received the word of the name Allah, he went running into Mecca and he was stoned. He was stoned by the Meccans, where his son was stoned. His son was stoned and died. At the same time his father was. His son was only 8 years old. 8 years old, he ran to his father's side. Actually, he was 11 years old. But you see what I'm saying? His son died and was stoned to death that day because Muhammad ran into Mecca right after he got the message, and he says, "There's but one Allah. There's but one Allah. There's but one Creator. There's but one Creator." Right? At that time, um, the belief in God, there was 360 gods exactly in Islam. It was on their Kaaba. Everything has to equal 360. Just like in a circle. On one side of the Kaaba was 90 gods, 90 gods, 90 gods, 90 gods. Well, if you take 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, you develop a square, a rectangle, a circle. Okay? It has to add up to 360, just like 360 days a week. Okay? A year. Okay? Now we know there's 365. Well, they had four dividing gods in between, on the temple. Each of the 12 tribes, meaning for the 12 months, each side had 45 gods on one side, 45 gods on, and in the center of that was what they call the spring, summer, winter, fall, the god of the seasons. Okay, that made 364. It wasn't until the Arabian calendar was always 364, always one day less, until God was accepted. Then the God finished off and made 365, and it changed. The divine God above all gods. Okay. The point of the matter is, okay, God, I'm going to try to get off this part because you're going to learn this. Once you start this, you're not going to become millionaires without learning something. God's not going to pay you to sit around and go against Him. The first thing that's going to stop when you stop is killing. Everybody's going to learn. Just like He wrote in the commandments for the Jews, "Thou shalt not kill." Well, He says that. He meant thou shalt not kill. No excuses, no wars, no justification at all. Thou shalt not kill. That's exactly what He meant when He said, wrote it in the Ten Commandments. There's no justification for it. The Jews provoked the first killings when Joshua crossed into the Red Sea. Joshua decided to start going into the land of the milk and honey and conquering it. I don't know if it's a Red Sea or what, but when Joshua decided to start conquering the world and take Jericho and take the Hittites, the Moabites, the Amorites, and take on everybody. I mean, he literally, the Jews were taking on giants. The Canaanites were giants. Now, do what happened during the time of Moses. Moses wasn't really grown up as a Jew. The story, he wasn't grown up as a Jew. He didn't know what was going on. It wasn't until right then, I'm going to try to tell you the story. I'm going to start telling you a story that I shouldn't be told at this second. Because I'm getting off in tangents. So I'll back up and just put it this way. Everybody in this world is going to start getting GODScoin within a month from now. And when they start getting GODScoin, you're not going to just be getting GODScoin. You're going to buy the GODScoins for the lowest unit of money that you have. Now, if you don't buy the money, guess what? Your money's going to be no good in the world anyway. Nobody's currency will be worth anything. Every currency in this world, especially there in the United States right now is shut down. Shut down because it can't afford its programs anymore. You see, up until now, it's been increasing its budget every year on purpose so that they can get more money every year. They got to keep that trend up, because if it was opposite and they started saving money, they would have there's no hope in that. I mean, you're just going to starve yourself to death. How many people have cut back their weight? The same thing. No countries learned to do that either. They're only going to always insist the next year they need more. They need more. How much money's in the banks in the world that's sitting there idle? It might be used to open businesses and everything, but it's still sitting there basically idle. Most of it just increasing in value by interest. By saying, okay, it's good to save. No, it's not good to save. There's a big imbalance in this world. Over 1/3 of this world is living on less than $1.25 a day. Not an hour, a day. Come on, when you start thinking about that. How far is $1.25 go in the United States? Not very far. But there again, when you look at the worst imbalance, is that the United States owes almost $39 trillion in debt. You know, the total debt of the world is is 74 trillion, maybe 75 trillion. You know what I'm saying? Now, over half of that amount belongs to the United States alone. The debt. How can you keep on borrowing money and not paying, borrowing money to pay your bills? That's what basically was doing. And you know what they're basing it on? Your labor. They're basing it on your labor. The future of what this world is going to make. We basically have been killing each other and destroying the growth of this world. We've been stagnated by the growth of this world, just like in the cowboy days. Everybody wore a gun and everybody killed each other. How can any country grow under those conditions? The Indians, they were wrong too. They're wrong in the fact that they fought every day to die. They knew every day it was a proud thing to die. You don't live to die. You live to live. The opposite. This is the concept that everybody hasn't caught on to. Life is precious, but we're all here for a reason. What reason does God have for us? Because this is the only place in the world that people can be born. God needs children. He needs us to live. He needs families. We're born for one reason. That's to have children, so God can live. When you kill one person, you're killing God inside you, life, right? You're killing the unborn. They're living inside you too. What woman doesn't have eggs? You know? What man doesn't have the opposite in sperm? This is what we're saying. All those children, the future are killed when somebody dies. So all life ends. So you're against God. Now guess what? Until then, actually everybody that dies before now, recently, everybody that died went and directly woke up in their DNA to see their mom, their deceased moms, dads, grandparents, siblings, everybody in their DNA and their relatives. All your ancestors were in your DNA. But going and living in your DNA might have seemed like a celebration and everything, but they were still kind of like in a purgatory, a holding place. A place where everybody's happy, but they're really not. There's little rewards there, okay? You're just with your family. You're with your extended family. but there's still little rewards there. You know, you're still not able to breathe. You're still not able to see things. You know, you're just there. You're just there. Okay. Now you can see each other. You can hug each other. You can feel. You can see. You can still see because your children are on earth breathing, the living. You can still see through them, and you still feel through them. You can still hear them. You can see them. You could everything. You can. They're an extension of you, but they're not living. You're still not living after you're in DNA. You're experiencing, but you're not living. It's like, how do you say? Anyway, it'd be similar to watching a movie. Okay, you're not feeling the pain as a child falls down. You know what I'm saying? So you're just like watching in a camera on film, a movie. So they can see what's going on, but they can't really feel. They can only see. And there's a lot of things people don't want to see. You know, but they could see it. They could see everything. You know, because you're an extension of them. The point of the matter is, we blew it. We blew it. We never recognized life, which we never recognized God. We claim God. We claim we love God. Ain't nobody cared about God. That's what I'm here for. That's what the thing. I'm here to fight. God got through to me. God and I have been together since I was 3 years old. I was autistic, and at 3 years old, I called God out, and it was the first time I talked to God. I said, "Where are you at? Why'd you let that happen? Why is there a devil?" You see? Now you want to say God made no mistakes in life? That's wrong. God did make mistakes in life. He trusted us. He trusted angels. That's one of the biggest mistakes that God made. He trusted us. He trusted, like you said, his angels. Why he didn't kill the devil? That doesn't make sense either. Makes no absolute sense why he didn't kill the angel. But there again, God's not about killing. God's never been about killing. What's written in the Bible about Abraham saying, testing his son and telling him to kill his son Isaac is a complete falsehood. What happened during the time that Abraham was there, Abraham was very close to death. Before he died, he wanted to see to it that his son, Ishmael, inherited everything he had. So he was out to sacrifice Isaac, kill Isaac before so that Ishmael could inherit everything. As Abraham drew the knife up to God and he said to kill him, God just told Abraham, he says, "You don't want to do this, don't do this," and he provided a sheep. He says, "Think about it, Abraham. Isaac was born when your mother was 77 years old. I made that because Ishmael, the angel told you that Ishmael was going to be as a wild man, his hand against every man, and every man's hand against him. So your mother was 77 years old when she had you, had Isaac. You see what I'm saying? That God had to make provided a sheep, and Abraham was not being tested. It was the opposite. He's going to kill Isaac because he wanted Ishmael, but God said, "Don't do this." That's what the true story is. Not much has changed, but the actions have changed. God's never killed nobody. You know the story of Moses, for instance, where he parted the Red Sea and that's true. God put a pillar of fire there to hold back the army long enough to him to part the Red Sea and let them across. God did that. But when it said when Pharaoh's army made chase and tried to go through the passage in the Red Sea, that they were all drowned? No. They might have lost their horses, they might have lost their spears, but not an animal, not a horse, nor a person drowned. God wasn't there to kill anybody. He didn't allow anybody to drown. He gave everybody time and the smarts to get themselves out of their harnesses, drop their weapons, and make it to the surface. Even release the horses to get to the surface. God made sure that all life, nobody died in that incident. Sure, he did part the Red Sea. Sure, he did hold back the armies. Long enough because there was things that were involved that God knew about. He said, going to do this, but it's not going to happen the way that they think. They had the treasure, the golden treasure from Khufu's pyramid. Khufu's pyramid, the greatest pyramid that's ever there, was the last pyramid built. Guess what? This is the last pyramid that was ever built. Why? Because the gold that came from that pyramid, every pyramid was systematically robbed. Khafre's pyramid was never robbed. Why wasn't Khafre? Because there was no gold in it. It basically found a corridor in it and there was nothing inside it. Okay, think about that. I was watching Professor Dr. Hawaii Hawass, Zahi Hawass, yesterday. I got a lot to talk with this man because, it's not that I'm going to tell him he's right or wrong. I'm going to tell him what God told me about this whole situation. I'm going to tell you right now what it was. Khafre was building Khufu's pyramid from quarries, the local quarries that were in Giza and in Turfu, that's just across the Nile. Okay? But the stones weren't real big and they were very ununiform and it was being rapidly put together. Khufu is a strict father, very strict father, and he wasn't stupid. And Khafre didn't like being the son, but he's building this huge pyramid by his father's instructions. Okay? And it was Khafre didn't know it wasn't going to be his, so he didn't care. He was building his father's pyramid, but Khafre didn't like it because it was being slapped together too fast and too sloppily. So the engineers, Khufu talked to the engineers, which was basically the Sumerians, were the elite of the Shemites, Shem's children. Okay, they spoke Sumerian. They were contracts. That's why who built the pyramids was the Egyptians, the Semites, and the Hebrews all together as one. They ate beef and they ate fish, and they drank a plenty of beer. Beer was the main thing that the united all of Egypt was surrounded by eating and drinking. Okay? Possibly even smoking marijuana, because there was plenty of marijuana growing there in that time. That's what they call the word hemp, is rope. They used plenty of rope and they made plenty of rope from the marijuana plants. Okay? So they knew exactly what it was. Now, what I'm trying to say is the Egyptians were working together. They were very happy people. Everybody, even during the days of Joseph, went there because every pyramid that was ever built before then, from the days of in Upper Egypt is actually Lower Egypt where Nubia is at. Over in Nubia there's 300 pyramids, but there's many more pyramids in Ethiopia. They were made to store grain. They stored grain and they kept grain and they kept animal food and they kept food for people. Flour, grains, oats, everything that they could keep. They stored it. Egypt was the only country that was ready for famine. People went there for protection. They went there for shelter, for a job, and they went there just to survive. Nobody else was surviving then. They were nomadic and they were traveling and they found food when they could get it. And they bought food because the nomadic